Just throwing that out there, you're not going to see much except for the same image over the entirety of this little discussion we're about to have. So let's start off with the political factions at play. We'll start with the easy ones. Russia and the Ottoman Empire. Russia is seeking to expand. The Ottoman Empire is seeking to survive. For years, the Ottoman Empire has been falling apart. Various European countries have been carving up its bits and pieces for the past 100 years. And along the way, they have set up little rebellions as they've gone along. In some cases, as in the case of the Suez Canal, the British flat out just kind of took over areas. So Russia wants to expand. And in particular, they're interested in a port called Sevastopol, which is on the Crimean Peninsula, which is in the Black Sea region right over here. The reason they want a warm water port is because if you look at most of Russia, it's landlocked. You got the Caspian, and you sail like a sailboat around it and have a little party, nothing else is there. So you're pretty much restricted to this area of latitude, which means that your ports freeze over during the winter. That's not good for trade, and it's not good for your military. Because if you think about it, we're talking about countries that span empires, that span the globe. If you want to project power somewhere else, you have to get your army there. And they've got to hop a ride in a boat. Now, in the case of Russia, you also have nice train routes and things like that. But if you want to go somewhere else, you got to have a port. And Russia wants its warm water port, and it wants it right here. This is Ottoman territory. So needless to say, we've got a conflict of interest between these two. Now, the Ottoman Empire has no prayer of defeating Russia by itself. So it starts asking for help. Who wants to help us fight off the big, mean, nasty Russians? And strangely enough, England and France, despite them having taken territory from the Ottomans, are like, yeah, we'll help you. We don't want them taking territory. Why? Why is it in the best interest of England and France to prevent Russia from gaining a warm water port? Yes. It wasn't so hard, was it? In fact, there's even a really great term we can use to describe this. I don't want them gaining more power. In fact, you might even say they want it to be equal or stable or another word that means all those things. You know, like you really want to go snowboarding, but, you know, you got to make certain you don't fall over. You got to keep your... Balance of power. Yes, balance of power. It's also very important for your snowboarding. Yes, balance of power is the term that I'm looking for. It means that we want to keep everybody equal. Russia's a big, scary guy with a stick, right? It's a big, ugly guard dog that's got a nice big fence between it and you. You guys have seen the Sandlot, right? The big monster dog, which actually is a nice dog, but you know, we're not talking. bunch of Russians are like, we're a nice dog. He said we're mean, but we're nice. You know what this means? Never mind, they're not watching this podcast. Anyways, so Russia has its tethers. It can't project too much power because its navy's kind of warmed up a little bit there. But if it gets a warm water port, and God forbid it ends up getting all the way down to Istanbul, it's going to control the freaking Mediterranean. Suddenly, we've got this big, nasty powerhouse that's just going to nom nom up Eastern Europe, and we've got problems with this. We don't want this to happen, so we fight a war with Russia. And oh man, is it deadly. Because one of the things that's changed is technology has improved to such a point that the killing of an enemy man becomes way easier. That's such a stupid line. I can't believe I said that, but whatever. You're with me on this. You know what I'm talking about? Enemy bad guys. You know. Killing people is a lot easier. But here's the thing is, it's not just the bullets doing the harm. Fact is, more people die in hospitals of disease than of people getting shot and killed by bullets. Just think about that for a second. Hospitals were not nice places to go in most of history. This is where you went if you were too poor to afford a doctor, because you paid for doctors to come to you and take care of you in your house. Right? You don't go places. People come to you, right? You're so wealthy and powerful and prestige. But the idea of going to a hospital is this is where you go to die. Right? And nurses, the folks who actually care for sick people, because doctors, they just kind of go like, yep, you're sick, and gone. Right? It's the nurses who actually do the day-to-day like, taking care of people, right? They're more like reverse midwives, where a midwife is someone who brings someone's life into the world. Nurses are the ones who see you out of it again. So this is where people go to die. All of this changes because of Florence Nightingale. All right. She's known as the mother of modern nursing for a reason. You see, what happened is, during the Crimean War, all these hospitals were set up to take in the wounded, but they needed nurses. So they started these drives back home and said, you know, sign up, be a nurse, be a hero, all these kind of great things. And Florence Nightingale, who's actually a noble lady, said, yeah, I want to do this. And her family was like, no, you know, nice, proper ladies don't go off into a freaking war zone. But she persisted, and they relented, and on she went. And she was put in charge of a few nurses in this field hospital, and immediately was just disgusted by the situation she found. You had men who had their bandages that hadn't been changed for several days. So it's all bloody and gross. They're laying in sheets that might not have been changed for several weeks. The food portions that they're given is really small because they're just going to die anyways. Why give them a bunch of food, right? You're just giving them enough of something so that they can die as peacefully as possible, right? And not to mention, the hospital itself is pretty filthy. So the first thing she does when she gets there is stop everything, clean everything. Do all the linens, do all the laundry, scrub the floors, scrub the walls, scrub the ceiling while you're at it. Clean up everything. Change the bandages multiple times a day. You know, we are going Mr. Clean on this thing. I'll do Mrs. Clean. And so they end up setting up a whole new system. And then she starts writing letters back home saying, hey, we really need more food for the hospitals, all this stuff, and so more food is coming in. It's nutritious and wonderful, and all this stuff is going on. And so what happens? Okay. A few months go by. An inspector who looks at all the hospitals, makes certain that they're up to military standard, everything's good. You go visit the poor, wounded soldiers. Comes up and sees everything nice and clean, wonderful, and bright and sunshine. One of the things that Florence Nightingale also did, I forgot to mention, is she had to open the windows. Sunlight was really good for the disease, as well as open the windows and allow fresh air to circulate in. And so he said, oh, things look really nice here. How many have you lost? Now, let's say right now, I don't remember the numbers, because I know the numbers yet. But let's talk about percentages. Okay? So 100%, I'd say 100 people, right? Okay, that would be what we expect to be lost in war, right? Because how many do you lose? 3. 97%, some say 98%, gone. That's a turnover of like 400, 500% now living. It's just like, how is this possible? I feel like someone, creating a drug for disease and then curing people like for what? It's just like, this is like wizardry. How did you do this? And so she explains her system, and this is then adopted by all of the hospitals in the British camps. All of them are under her system. She completely revolutionizes how hospitals are run. To this day, hospitals are run on her principles. This also helps, again, to reinforce the proof that germ theory is a thing. This is how we can keep from spreading disease. Along with Joseph Lister, who was a physician, who was one of the first to actually use antiseptics on his tools for surgery, we have the beginning of a whole new field of medicine. So anyways, as I said, the war is pretty bloody and Russia loses. The Ottomans still lose some territory, even though they lose, because the Ottomans always lose. That's the thing you'll learn pretty quickly, is the Ottomans always lose in the 19th century. And that's not technically, that's because of European things. But anyways. And so what happens next is we have a pretty tense situation in Europe. Okay, so Russia has been defeated and stymied, but they're not done yet. They've still got a lot of problems, but they're also a tremendous empire, waiting to expand. They turn their attention to Eastern Europe, where, again, Ottoman Empire, they've kind of fallen apart there. Instead, you have these bigger kingdoms there that are slowly falling apart as nationalism sets in. And it provides an opportunity maybe in the future for Russia to look at things. Meanwhile, England is kind of, happily being the king of all things, except they have a weakness. If they get cut off from their colonies, they're totally screwed, right? I mean, they're dependent on these colonies. If they get separated from them, or something happens to them, it's going to be a problem for them. France is still hurting from the Franco-Prussian War. They are going to want revenge on Germany, who, by the way, is busy just kind of like flexing over there in the central part of Europe, just kind of making bro faces at people. Because here's the thing is, they've been building up their military for the past 100 years. Do you even live, bro? So they are ready to use it. You don't go through military training all of a sudden and expect to never use it. You're planning on using it at some point when the situation avails itself. So everybody's kind of tense and ready for something to happen. And what's the best policy if you think a war's going to happen? You build more guns. And here's the thing is, spies are a thing. We already know this because, the freaking case with what was his name? Stupid brain. The Dreyfus affair. So we know spies are a thing. Guess what happens when the spy sees like Germany building a bunch of guns? Hey guys, they're building guns. That means they're going to start a war soon. Oh crap, we better build more guns. And suddenly we have an arms race on our hands. So everybody's freaking out. And so whenever there's a fight about to happen, one of the best things you can do is, hey, you got my back, right? In case of war, we're buds, right? Yeah? In case of war? Yeah? Buds? Yeah? Friends? Yeah? Good? Good? Good butt? Yeah? Have a couple lemons? I don't know. What do you like? This is good about me. Yes, very well. So, we find our friends. And here's the thing, it's Home's even better plan, right? You don't tell anybody else who your friends are. So if you go mess with me, I might have 500 friends. I might have none, but you don't know this. It's my poker face. Lady Gaga did a song about it. So we've got this thing going on. We got it cooking, right? What's going to happen is a really tiny thing blows up into the biggest war the world has ever seen. Let's talk casualties, right? For most of the wars that we're talking about at this time, we might have 1,000 people die. We might have 10,000 people die. Maybe even a couple 100,000 people die. Right? That's a lot of people, yeah? I mean, seriously, think about it. 9/11 was slightly over 1,000 people, right? That's a lot, right? In World War I, 10 million people died. That's an entire generation. To put this into perspective, oh, by the way, there's another 10 million die after the war because of flu. So 20 million people died over the course of World War I. And by the way, if you want a percentage of that, let's make a little experiment here, a little example. Okay? So in microcosm, you guys, right? Let's say this entire class represents every person of your generation in the United States, right? Every single person that is your age, right? Of close to fighting age of World War I, right? One of you survives, the rest are all dead. Someone always says that every year. But in all honesty, think about that. Think about all the guys you knew, every guy your age, most of them are dead. Maybe 10% survive? That's astronomical. It is so bad, the population effects are still being felt today. You want to know why the population of Europe is so small? Because it never recovered from World War I. And by the way, what happens after World War I? World War II. Because we had to have a sequel to that. Holy cannolis. We're getting to some crazy nonsense here. And this is the setup. Crimea is the setup for all this. That's why it's so important now. Now, by the way, you guys read the poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade. I'm sure you probably don't remember it because it was snow day and, you know, that's what happens.
I just can't comprehend that.
That happens. I was going to read it with you guys to help kind of explain stuff. But the other thing is, if you want a pretty decent explanation of it, watch The Blind Side. You see that movie? That's the poem that he goes over for his class. His name is Michael. That's The Charge of the Light Brigade. That's the one you guys read. So if you go back and watch the movie, check that scene out. It's really quite good. But I'm going to read it with you guys in a much worse way and kind of explain what went down there. Now, first off, understand this about the period. They are in a period of romanticizing war. War is great. War is where men become men and they fight and some people die and it's very sad and tragic, but the heroes they beat live on and all this kind of stuff. This is how war is presented in the 19th century. I don't know if you guys remember from the video we watched on the Zulu this week, in the Battle of Isla Zandi, I think is how you pronounce it, basically where the British got destroyed by the Zulu, and 4 or 12 dudes made it out alive. Right? Does that Vegas ring a bell? They said that it was a victory because, and wait for it, the flag wasn't captured. Because the flag, the regimental flag, they threw it into a river and somebody got it later. It's like, I thought this was war, not capture the flag. But apparently that's a thing. So this sort of romanticization of war is very much a thing. And I want that to be clear because when we read the poem, that's kind of what it's doing. Because make no mistake, the actual charge of the Light Brigade, the event, was a cavalry charge that was a colossal failure. It was a tremendous screw-up. And yet it's painted in this romantic, oh, they were so brave. to die the way they did. The thing is, they knew somebody screwed up. They did it anyways because that's what they were ordered to do, which I guess is kind of honorable, but also stupid. But that's kind of the point. All right, so here we go. It's the Battle of Balaclava. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the light brigade, charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600. So basically there's 600 dudes, right? And they're said, yo, there's some cannons over there, go hit them with your swords. Not the cannons, the dudes who have the cannons, because that would be really dumb to sit in the cannons, right? Now, this makes sense to some extent, because cavalry is really quick, and if you can send them to basically not directly at the cannons, like to swoop from the sides where they can't shoot at you, that's a great way of taking out cannons. The problem is the cannons are set up on a ravine, right? So the only way to get to them is straight through the middle of guns, all sides of them. So it's basically a suicide charge, right? Forward the light brigade! Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knows someone had blundered. There's not to make reply, there's not to reason why. There's but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. So they know some dude had screwed up, but they're going anyways. And that's pretty brave. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered. Stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode and well. Into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600. Stuff got real. I think that's pretty well explained right there. That's what happened. It was bad. But they made it. That's good. Hey. Flashed all their sabers bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabering the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered. Plunged into the battery smoke, right through the line they broke. Cossack and Russian reeled from the saber stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. So they got over there, they started beating up these cannon guys, and holy crap, there's an army there, run away. Happened. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon behind them volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left of 600. Not laugh, sorry. It was hilarious. No, they were running back and the cannons were like opening up on them. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made, all the world wondered. Honor the charge they made, honor the light brigade, noble 600. So what they did was pretty cool. Yeah. What's that? Ding, 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 ding. Yes, exactly. That's what it is. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing is from one standpoint, you do have the romantic aspect of it, because these were guys who knew that someone had screwed up and given them the wrong orders, but they did it anyways because it was their duty to die for their country. So on one hand, that's respectable. But on the other hand, we're like, why would you do that? You just basically killed yourselves for no reason. And that's sort of the fact of the military blunder, why it's so kind of infamous in history. You know, there's just this sort of great story. And at the same time, we're all smacking our heads, but at the same time, it's also, well, yeah, those guys were pretty freaking brave to do what they did. So, there's that. But Alfred Lloyd Tennyson, his poetry really heavily represents this period. In particular, the romanticization of this imperialist British culture that kind of developed. Now, one thing I will say is in some of his portrayals, he actually does give respect to certain groups. For instance, he refers to one particular group as the Fuzzy Wuzzies, talking about an African tribal group as the headdresses. And it's kind of almost derogatory, but at the same time, he gives them respect by saying that they broke the square. And what he means by that is the infantry, when they were surrounded, in order to protect their backs, would form a literal square, guys facing each direction, and they just fire volleys, and whoever came near them, one after another, after another, after another. It's sort of like the circling the wagons thing we saw in the video, only you do it with people instead of wagons. The problem with that, though, is that the corners are the weakest part. And if you can hit the corners hard enough, you break it in. It's sort of like breaking open a Cadbury Cream-Aid. You get through the hard chocolate shell and get to the gooey center parts. So that's a really disgusting description of breaking the square. Thank you for that. But anyways, that is one of the things about his poetry is it brought this sort of romantic imagery. And frankly, we kind of have to question that nowadays. It's like, how much of that was really true? But the thing is, it was wonderful propaganda. It got people way behind the military, and everyone was very supportive of it. Though, as you'll see when we get to the 20th century, pacifism starts becoming a thing. People try to think alternatives to war, but there's still this really pro-war attitude. World War I shatters that, absolutely destroys it. So, we're getting to that. That's pretty much it. You guys have most everything that you need in your notes that you guys took with the actual definition. So you should be good for the most part. Plan is to finish the last section early next week. I think it's just one more section, section 5, and then get ready for the test. So that's it. You guys can marinate.